Hello there, and welcome to the Bold Badass Business Show, where we delight in bringing you badassery and badasses from all over the globe. And we give you the no BS version of business. And you all, today, I am very happy to have in the house another podcaster, Rob Tracz, who has just had his 100th episode of Surviving the Side Hustle podcast. Woo! Yay, Rob. That's amazing. I remember hitting that and it's like, yes, consistency, which we're going to talk about today. And you all should know that Rob loves working with solopreneurs and folks who have been doing a side hustle and they want to perform at a much higher level. They want more profit. They want more free time. They want more of the good. And that's what he is adept at doing. So welcome to the show, Rob.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're here too. And it's been great to meet you through a networking organization and get to know you a little bit. And I can't wait for what we're talking about, because when we came up with this title, You're Off Your Rocker, it was not only funny, but it's so true. And Rob, what do you see? Why are so many people off their rocker right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why people are off their rocker, but for what I'm seeing recently is a lot of people kind of getting caught up in different routines and things that they think they need to be doing and juggling different identities on who they need to be and who they previously were, and just a whole lot of different things. So it's crazy out there nowadays, right?
It kind of is. And there's a lot of, I like to say, turmoil and division. And I do think it's so important that one of the ways that we can create peace in our lives is by having some structure and having, for example, a spiritual practice. But before we get into some more specifics, I want to ask you, Rob, when did you realize, you know what, I really want to be a high performance coach, and this is why? What was that moment in your life where the big aha in capital letters, like on the Superman comics, it came out, said me.
Yeah. So it was, I wouldn't say that there was a specific time point. I think it was more of like a process or a journey that I had gone through.
Yeah.
In a previous life in career, I was a strength and conditioning coach, and that was my background. Sports was kind of like the gateway for personal development for me. And taking a lot of the different principles that helped me be a successful athlete, a successful leader on a lot of my sports teams, also helped me be very successful in school, graduating undergrad kinesiology major and then moving on to grad school, finishing with a 4.0 GPA with my master's in exercise science and concentration in injury prevention and performance enhancement. And that just kind of continued to fuel my excitement around performance and optimization and really creating better lives and better individuals. And right out of undergrad, I stayed in the strength and conditioning world, and that was the first taste of entrepreneurship for me. I got to basically control all my own marketing, my sales, my schedules, and really my own product, which was the programs that I was delivering. And that gave me the ability to quickly scale up my book of business to the point where I was working 16, 17 hours a day, training and working with like sometimes 15 people in a day. And I did that. Yeah. And I did that for 7 days a week, which gets pretty old after about 3 years straight. I'm talking like holidays, New Year's, Christmas. Yeah. Yeah. It was tough. And it wasn't until my dad had got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer and ultimately passing away about 6 weeks after that diagnosis, that's when I started to kind of realize that I'm living a life that I don't want to be living. I've been creating this that I don't really want to be living in. But instead of that being the turning point for me, I continued to fall into my routine and my schedule. And for another almost 2 years later, until finally I had a weekend where a lot of my clients were away and I was denied the distraction of my full schedule. And I was.
Wait, let me pause you. I want everyone to hear what he just said on that weekend. Listen, everybody. He was denied the distraction of his very full schedule. How often do we do that as entrepreneurs, as people? We keep ourselves busy in order not to look at the things we need to look at. All right. That was just amazing. I had to stop you for a sec, Rob. So that happened. And that weekend you were like, oh, I have no distraction. So what
Yeah.
came up for you? I can't wait to hear this. What came up?
Well, the first thing was as I'm like frantically swiping through my phone looking for anybody who is available to train on the weekend, kind
Yeah.
of like a bad dating app. I was just like, boom, 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 who's around, who's available? The first question I had was, all right, well, no one's around. So what
Mm,
do normal people do on Friday nights?
mm,
And then I remembered back in college and grad school is hanging out with my friends and enjoying music and going out to eat and doing fun things. And then I went to my friends and I'm like, okay, well, who haven't I talked to in a while? And because for the past 3 or 4 years, I just kept saying, no, I'm busy working. Nobody was around for me either. And that was a hard pill to swallow. And that's when I was really
mm.
like, okay, something needs to change. And then
Yes.
that's when I began the journey of cutting back on my fitness coaching and then really trying to discover and figure out what it was that I wanted to be doing. And it took about a year or so for me to realize that I can help other solopreneurs or side hustlers who are juggling a lot of different things really get unstuck and create momentum around the different projects that they're working on and avoid getting trapped in what I call robot mode of that
Yes.
efficiency and success on paper
Right.
so that they can really enjoy the process of growing their business and also enjoy actually living their lives.
Mm. And a radical idea, right? Enjoy your business and enjoy your life. And actually, I was talking about this the other day, Rob, with a colleague. So many people in our society are just addicted to struggle and addicted to overwork. And it's especially rampant for entrepreneurs because we have this mindset sometimes of, well, if I don't do it, nobody else will. So I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do the other. I can't leave this undone. We have a lot of perfectionism to overcome, and those things can really hold us back.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing that you've said so far too about structures is that you did have routines when you were in that job, or in that job where you were working like 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. You had routines, but they weren't healthy routines. They were unhealthy and they kept you mired and trapped in that life. Is that right?
Oh yeah, and I think because of my athletic background and just like being a guy and the hustle culture of everything nowadays, it's
Mm-hmm.
you almost reinforce and wear it like a badge of honor. Like, okay, yeah, I can continue pushing, just push, 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 push.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times that's what helps you be successful in other areas.
Mm-hmm.
And when you develop that grit and that resilience from sports and other things and other avenues in life, and that carries over, it can be positive influence and aspect of your life, especially when you're first starting to get things rolling. But then it can also become negative too, because if you don't know when to slow down or where to put the boundaries, you'll just keep going like that train just off the tracks. And that can become a big problem. So for me, it was constantly getting up early, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning, so I could train somebody at 4 a.m.
Mm.
and then going until like 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night just to repeat it the next day,
Mm.
and barely any time in between. So it was difficult to kind of please everybody else and make sure that I'm showing up so that other people can benefit from me
Yeah,
being there
that's
when
right.
without taking into account of how I'm actually doing and how I'm feeling, how I'm fueling myself, like caffeine 24/7, just
Mm.
running on fumes nonstop.
Red Bull,
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's amazing to me. I was reading an article about how many young people are drinking that stuff. I've never drunk a Red Bull in my life. I think if I did, you'd probably have to wipe me off the ceiling because I'm already high energy. It'd be like, get her down,
Yeah.
bring her down, get the ladder. But what you're saying, Rob, is so true. We live in this society that wears it, like I like to say it, as a martyr. Let's just put our arms out. Go ahead, crucify me now because I work so hard. Look at me, I work so hard. And we think that's a great thing. But indeed, it's very, very, very detrimental to our families. Hence one of the really highest rates of divorces in this country. I was just talking to a European friend about this, and one of the things I loved, Rob, when I lived over there, is that you people finish work, and guess what? Everybody's at the cafe. They'll have a glass of wine, they'll have a cafe au lait, whatever, but everybody, little, babies up to people who are in their 90s, but they're still walking around and they're still hanging out with their friends. And
Yeah.
that creates incredible connection. And I believe it also creates longevity.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that social component is massive. And
Yep.
to be honest, that's a major pillar or a principal part that I was missing too. Although I'm surrounded by so many people all day long, I was more isolated than I've ever been in my life.
Mm.
And I'm essentially with somebody every hour of the day, but the
Mm.
conversations were so surface level, and it was so, I don't want to say fake, but it wasn't, there was no giving back towards me. It was always me trying to show up. And I love all my clients that I used to work
Yeah.
with, and nothing against them because they're
Right.
there bettering themselves. But I was 24/7 just constantly giving. And it was crazy that I even made it that far into my career
Yeah.
just without pumping the brakes even a little bit.
And so, as we talk about you're off your rocker, I hope those of you listening are realizing there are some ways maybe you're overworking, you're over worrying, you can never get time back, right? That's the one resource we can never ever get back is time. And so everything you're spending it on, is it really in alignment with what you really care about and who you really care about? It's a potent question to ask yourselves today as we talk with Rob. And I'm wondering, Rob, so we can see how people are off their rocker. And then you talk about how we can revive our business and our life with radical routine. So, what exactly is a radical routine? How do you define that?
Yeah, I think it's really making a crazy shift or making up a new routine or a new pattern that is different or sometimes even counter to what you were doing previously. Like
Mm.
in in entrepreneurship, and at least when I started my business, it was always push, 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 push. And you just were mentioning how time is something you can't necessarily get back. And it's easy for at least for myself, and I imagine a lot of other listeners now too, to say like, yeah, once I get to X, Y, and Z, or once I hit X, Y, and Z, then I'll be able to tone things back down. But
Hmm.
even when those numbers or metrics are hit, barely anything ever changes. And it was hard for me because I kept telling myself once I got to this specific spot or this metric, then I would cut back. And then I would tell myself that I wouldn't take on as many clients
Mm.
or I would cut back some of that time. And it wasn't really until I made the decision that I needed to do this over anything else and starting to cut back and give myself more time in my own schedule and creating those things by figuring out what I really needed to prioritize. What is it that I really needed to make changes for? And how do I do that too? Like, how do I even make that without being rude? I can't just be like, hey, sorry, Sally, but I'm not working with you anymore because I need this hour of the day. I can't just cut people out.
Yeah, we have to give a reason, right? Um, but I do also believe, Rob, okay, we can get a little spiritual here, but I also believe that whatever you'd like to call that energy, God, source, that energy that is bigger than us, physicists call it energy, whatever you like to call it, guess what? Sometimes we have to have those things taken away from us. And I think probably everybody here has had an experience where you realize, okay, that way of being or that group I'm spending a lot of time with, no, or those clients right over here, this group of clients, really not my best people to work with. And I'm not their best person. So when we have those moments, it's like the universe will say, since you didn't deal with it, we're gonna take it. You know what I'm talking about, Rob?
Yeah, kind of. I
Yeah.
feel, I feel like I've been there, and
Yes.
also you don't want to turn around, you don't want to turn away business ever when you're first trying to get things kind of rolling because any business is better than no business at first. And you're just like, yeah, okay, I'll figure out how to make this work. Or this person's not a perfect client for me, but I can figure out how to make what I do fit for them. And I can sacrifice a little bit of this for myself here so that they can kind of get something here. But that really just kind of that makes less than optimal results for everybody. And
Yes.
it's tough.
It absolutely backfires. So when we think about these counterintuitive routines, so let's say somebody has overworked, right? I think a lot of people here can identify with that, especially when you're in the first years of your business. It feels like you're working every day. You may be working every day. And it feels like, I came out of academia where I did work about 70 hours a week, and I definitely worked less than that, a lot less in my business. I work like 20 or 25 now, but then I worked a lot more, 50, 60 when I was starting. And so I think we can identify with this. So when we've been in that pattern of overworking, what's a great radical routine that we could try out for ourselves to shift and to give ourselves some rest and some fuel for the journey?
Yeah, I think I think self-care is paramount in making sure that you are moving forward and progressing. And I try to schedule it into my routines as much as I can on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis, just to kind of give myself some way to slow down. And I've seen over the years that meditation is super important to me. Sometimes you don't necessarily have enough time in a day to kind of get to it, but like slowing down and having practices where you can pause for a second or pause for a few minutes even, and just to spend a little bit of time reflecting on how things have been going and how things are going like into the future. And that really gives you that little bit of a pause to kind of audit yourself and say, how am I doing right now? How have I been doing just previously? And if I continue with this, how long can I keep going forward at
Mm-hmm.
this rate? And that'll sometimes be just enough just to kind of slow down and course correct and allow you to recognize like, okay, hey, maybe I do need to push just a little bit further for this week or even into next week or even the next one. But then I need to slow down and pump the brakes and shift seasons into a little bit more of a slow or a steady season. Can't constantly be in a sprint season forever. There are times where you do need to crank it up and show up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And then you want to make sure that you at least have time to shift into a steady season or slow down into a slow season.
So let's do something right now. I have this wonderful candle. Recently, I've been having candles at a lot of places where I work in my house, right? I have 2 home offices and then I work around. So I will keep my little thing and I have this candle here. And so what I'll do and you all, this is not what we're talking about. It doesn't have to take long. So I'm just lighting this candle right now. It's a really pretty candle. It's actually a money candle that somebody sent me for financial freedom, something that's nice. But you can use any candle. I like this one because it's in a can. It's safe. And let's just close our eyes for a second. And everybody, I want you to take a deep breath in through your mouth. Just hold it for a second at the top and then release with a sigh. And let's do it one more time. Breathe in through the mouth. Hold at the top. Release. One more time. Breathe in through the mouth. Hold at the top. And release. So that took us all of about maybe 30 seconds, maybe less than a minute. And yet, how do you feel now? Those of you listening, how do you feel? Put it up in the chat. I feel just more solid. I feel more grounded. I feel present here. How do you feel, Rob?
Definitely a little bit more calm, a little bit more slowed down. And it's
Yeah.
very important. I feel like my brain is always running way too fast, so much faster than I can keep up myself. And these little tips and tricks like this is so great because it allows me to recenter and kind of gain a little bit more control over my thoughts and conversations and different meetings that I have to go into throughout the day.
And a really easy practice too that I love is just to take the hand and put it right here, where like a V-neck would be. And this is the energy center. It's the heart energy center, but it's what's called the upper heart, right? In between, it's in the middle of your chest, not over the actual heart, the beating heart, but right here. And just hold your hand there. So everybody, again, you're like where a V-neck would be. You're going to put one hand there. It doesn't matter which hand, or you can cover both hands if you want. But I like to use my right hand for some reason. It feels good. And just hold your hand there and become aware of your hand and feel the energy in your hand. You may feel some heat or maybe even a little bit of a pulsation. And remember to breathe because oxygenation is really good. And just let yourself feel the heaviness of your hand as it sits there. And relax. Just relax. Let your hand relax. Let your body and your hand kind of melt in together. And actually imagine that you're breathing from this upper heart. You're actually breathing from this upper heart right now. And just keep breathing. And feel how your parasympathetic nervous system actually kicks in. And things are easier. And actually the vagal nerve, which conducts so much of our, what shall I call our directions or instructions to the rest of the body, it begins to relax when we do some breathing or we hold our hand there. And these are so simple little routines we can use. Now, Rob, I know because you're an athlete, and I've never been a great athlete, though I was a sportswoman in terms of horses at one point in my life. Never been a great athlete, but I get that you're talking about also physical routines that people can do to release. So would you tell us some of those that you recommend?
Yeah, so to be a little more active and kind of present at the same time, I had no idea that there was an actual name for this type of activity, but I guess people have been calling it silent cardio. And I've been doing it for a while just to kind of get outside of my own head and just try to be more present. I just go out for a walk.
Cardio.
Yeah, it's walking, running, or doing something where you're moving your body and without headphones and just listening, breathing, really like what we were just doing, feeling where we are, where we're at. I like to go for a walk and then finding a bench and just kind of sitting down and really feeling the sunlight, feeling the wind, listening to the different noises. I like to think of the different sounds that I can hear. I'm like, okay, there's a bird, there's somebody talking, there was a car over there, and like kind of checking in with those. And then at the end, I just allow myself to just kind of chill, just dropping every focus and just kind of sitting with all the different senses. And for my brain does this crazy thing where it just essentially just turns off and it's just sitting there and it's just refreshing. It usually gives me a little bit of a chill and it's just kind of feels a little wiggly and it feels cool. Yeah. And I love that. And that's a great feeling. I always look after each day when I'm meditating or going for one of those silent cardio walks.
I love that because you're actually talking about the energy in the body. And, the Chinese call it qi. And in Reiki, which I have taught for, since 1992, method of hands-on, natural stress and healing. Actually, you don't even have to have your hands on. You can do it distant. I was doing a little bit earlier for everybody, by the way. But when you do Reiki, we actually just drop down into this place that is just still and so refreshing. But we can begin to feel the stuckness, since we've been talking about, let's get unstuck, people. You can feel that stuckness actually begin to move, and you'll feel energy like chills, or you might feel heat. And that is, think of it like plumbing. That is those energy meridians and the pathways in our bodies and the nerve pathways, right? All of this, they're being opened up. And there's a movement of energy begun by your parasympathetic nervous system coming in, you walking, you breathing, and experiencing all your senses. I love that. What a great practice. And just to allow ourselves to do it without headphones, without any distraction. At one point, I realized I would often do my enrollment conversations on the phone, Rob, while I was walking. And then I realized, no, this is not, I get a lot done and I walk really far. So if it's for exercise, great, but it doesn't refresh me mentally when I'm on the phone with people while I'm walking.
I love that you brought that up, because in strength and conditioning, there was always popular and great new people coming out, new trainers and coaches, and always showing these different exercises where you can work on your balance, you can work on your strength and your conditioning, and doing all these things at once. And to me, it was always like, it was almost too much. Like, hey, if I want to focus on getting stronger, why don't I just do a strength exercise really well? If I want to work on cardio, why don't I just do some cardio really well? Why do I got to mix so many things together? And then that was something that I've recently started doing too. When I'm on coaching calls, I'd be headphones on, pacing around my apartment, getting some bicep curls in or whatever it is. And then I realized, like, hey, let me be more present with my clients, and let me just eliminate the distractions and just focus in on what they were saying and be a better listener too.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yes. And our world needs great listeners, not just listeners between people, but also the world needs us listening to ourselves, to our beings, to our souls, to our inner essences, and not just going through the motions because I'm supposed to work 9 to 8 or I'm supposed to work 7 days a week. This is why I think those of us who are entrepreneurial, either we desire to be, because I know some of you listening are aspiring entrepreneurs, some of you have been entrepreneurs for eons, but we are different because we recognize we're in search of something, of freedom, a way of living our life that isn't dictated necessarily by society. And that's a very powerful, powerful place to be. Would you say, Rob?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's like, as entrepreneurs, it was tough for me to kind of agree with this statement, but as entrepreneurs, we are so creative, constantly building new projects, new businesses, new things and processes and such. And for the longest time, I was resisting against it because I didn't want to, I was told myself that I wasn't creative and I couldn't be creative, and really like leaning into the creativity allowed me to kind of be more energized and look at new projects and challenges as exciting and new things to work on, and kind of leaning into that as an entrepreneur and as an individual.
I love it. And I think leaning into the things we're uncomfortable with. So you heard me say I'm not quite the athlete, but I decided some years ago, I'm going to take jujitsu. All right. Let me take some jujitsu. I don't know why that came into my head, but okay, I'll do it. I was the only woman in that class, Rob, and it was intense. Like I think I must have taken like 4 or 5 ibuprofen after the class. But I wanted to stretch myself. And it did stretch me. And so I would say to everybody listening, think about an area. Like I say, I'm not that athletic, that I'm kind of clumsy, but truthfully, I'm a really great salsa dancer. And so think about something that you're saying to yourself, right? Maybe you're saying, I'm not good at reading. Maybe you're saying, I'm not artistic. Maybe you're saying what Rob said, I'm not creative. And what if you were to turn that on its head and say, you know what? I am so creative. I am so graceful. I am so full of energy. If you're really tired, whatever, the opposite of it. And what if you begin to speak that truth into yourself? It's my experience that when we begin to speak a new truth into ourselves, and by speak it into ourselves, I mean, say it aloud. I mean, do self-hypnosis using it, maybe have a mantra that we repeat, write affirmations, claim it, put it on the bathroom mirror with a Post-it note. But when we begin to speak truths into ourselves and fill ourselves with the new truth, ourselves in our body begin to respond.
Yeah, I love that so much. And thank you for sharing that too about the jujitsu, because it's really pushing yourself and stepping into that energy and that nervousness of doing new things that really helps us build confidence and resilience too, and that grit. And for a perfect example, I've never been a golfer, and today was the first day that I actually went to a driving range, and I
Wow.
was so nervous. I was way more nervous about just going to the driving range than speaking on stage in front of 300 people,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
more so than anything else I've done. Like going to rugby practice with a new
Mm-hmm.
team and new people I've never met was nothing compared to just going to the driving range and just being there hitting some balls. And that made me so nervous, but I knew that it was going to be fun and exciting and a new thing for me to learn. So I looked at it as a positive lens.
Yes. And then if it's something you decide to stick with over time, over time, over time, eventually it becomes an unconscious competence. So you could do it, with your eyes closed, with duct tape, over your mouth, whatever, with your hands duct taped together, you could still do it. Point being, you all, we like to stay, don't we, where we're comfortable in those zones of unconscious competence, right? I'm a great writer. I'm very comfortable there, or maybe you're a great communicator. You're very comfortable in front of a group, or maybe you're someone who's great with other people, bringing them together on teams. So you stick with teams and groups. Well, you all, the Bold Badass Business Show is about get out of your comfort zone. Yeah. And so I want to give everybody an assignment, Rob, and I want you to give them one too. And that is, before we give them something special, a gift, you all. Hang on, you got to listen in. Don't leave. Uh, that is, I would like to give everybody a little exploration to do. And that is, I want you to think about an area that, or something that's always intrigued you, but you've never done it, right? Maybe you never went parachuting, or maybe you never zip lined, or maybe you never went to an art class. It doesn't have to be just something super athletic at all. Maybe you don't sing in front of people. You think you are not a good singer. Choose something, and something that you haven't experienced, and go find a way to put yourself in an environment where you learn something new. It's kind of beginner's mind, as we call it. In Buddhism, they call it beginner's mind, to come back to that beginner's mind that says, I don't know everything. I really don't. And I don't need to know everything either. I'm good with not knowing everything. It's actually very freeing, isn't it, Rob?
Oh yeah, yeah. When you're taking on and going out and you realize that you don't know everything, and that there are
Yeah,
bigger fish than you, it's freeing. Is exactly right.
it's very freeing. We can get outside of our egos, and that's the other thing. When we go and we experience something that we're not necessarily really good at, we don't have any competence in, it allows us to be more compassionate with our clients, doesn't it?
Yeah, it brings that new perspective and better understanding and a deeper level of connection.
Yeah. Because I just remember being scared shitless when I started my business. What about you, Rob? Seriously. I
Yeah.
remember just thinking, and this is, it's 25 years ago for me. And I remember, and it was about this time. It was actually September 11th of 2000, a year before the towers came down, that I started my business. And I remember just saying, oh my gosh, there's no one else to support me. And I've got these 4 furry mouths to feed, 4 rescued animals. And geez, I've got student debt for my PhD. And wow, how's this going to, okay, God, but we're doing this. And I remember fear. And I think sometimes we gloss over that, right? Because we develop the muscle of dealing with it and just keeping going and things work out. But when you're first in that place, it can feel like it's overwhelming.
Yeah, I remember when I first fully filed my LLC and I was rolling and everything was up and running,
Mm-hmm.
but I was so afraid to tell anybody that I had done it. I didn't want to tell people that I was doing this, and I was kept it all to myself for a while. And then I was like, what am I doing? I'm supposed to be telling people and promoting and doing that.
Got to market.
Yeah, but it was scary. I didn't want to tell my friends. I didn't want to tell my family. I didn't want negative feedback is what I think I was afraid
Exactly.
of.
And that's a big reason, I think, why a lot of people don't go for it. And I'm glad you went for it and you keep going for it, because a lot of people will hold themselves back because it's like, oh my gosh, I care about this. And what if my family thinks I'm nuts? What if my friends think I'm nuts? What if I'm not good at it? And then everybody's like, I told you so. But that's why being an entrepreneur is not really for the faint of heart. But I just want to say to everybody listening that persistence and routine, to come back to our word, and consistency will trump anything. They will trump people who are super smart. They will trump people who are geniuses. They will trump innovation, because it's the follow through and the consistent routine and the doing it over and over and over and over until we get adept at it that creates success.
So true. So very true.
So true, right? So give us another radical routine, and then we're going to give away something. How about give everybody that as your a little, I don't like the word assignment. It sounds too schoolsy, but you know what I mean? Like, here's an invitation, you all, for something that you can do that Rob would recommend that will help you have a routine that supports you in your business.
Yeah, I mean, I really think kind of writing things down, writing the challenges and the new exposures that you're going through, the experiment that you kind of propose to everybody, writing it down and kind of reflecting on it, and how did it go, and how did it make you feel? And then I think also sharing that with somebody else is very powerful too, because then you're telling people of what you're doing. You're kind of pushing yourself out there. And kind of like me, when I first started my business, I was afraid to tell people. So I think writing it down and reflecting on how the experience was, and then sharing that with somebody else that you might not normally share with, is a great way, because it helps expand what you're doing and allowing it to kind of stabilize into your mind and body.
And you're impacting that other person, because the person that you choose is probably chosen by divine appointment to hear what you have to say. And you may not know that. You may just start talking to the person. This happens to me all the time. I'm like, I need to talk to this person, but I don't know really why. But I just will start talking to them. And then there's a reason. There's something there. You're being led to share it with another person, because their life will be impacted too. It definitely roots it in you, but you chose that person for a reason on some energetic level. And my guess is they're going to benefit from what you shared. They're going to think about it. They're going to ruminate on it, and it's going to change their life, whether or not you ever know that. So you all, just to think in your life, one thing I would say is it's not all about us at all. It's not about us. It's really not about us. Did you ever notice that, Rob? It's like when we realize it ain't about us, then we get free to really be the expression of whatever you're trying to bring through. For me, I love. That's the thing I've been focusing on recently. Just bring through love to my clients and my work and my spiritual community, to bring through love. So what are you focusing on, everybody? And how can you bring that through? What's a routine you could do? Can you write about it, like Rob said, or write about your troubles and let them go, share with somebody else? Can you put them in a God box? Write something down and put it in the God box, put it away, and let your spiritual source take care of it for you. So these are some great things to think about. Rob, you've been a wonderful guest. I appreciate your presence. You have a very calming presence. Don't y'all think? Doesn't Rob have a calming presence? Put yes in the chat. And that's important, because you've been in business how many years now? Like 3, 2, 3, 4?
Since 2017, so almost 10. Just getting pretty close.
Yeah, it's like 8 years.
Yeah.
So and these kinds of things are why you're still in business. What you've shared today, it's why you've got the stamina.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for those kind words. And it's so true. It's what kind of helps carrying it forward, allowing me to be more consistent.
Yeah. And you're sharing that message with everybody here. So you all, radical routines. Now, here's my favorite part. Well, not my favorite part, but one of my favorite parts of the show is when we give you something. Yay. And this is going to be in the Bold Badass Business Vault. So get out your pen, everybody, and write this address down, because this is how you access the vault with thousands of dollars of gifts in it for you. So you're going to go to bit.ly/free from Dr. B, which is all one word, free from DRB. Again, it's bit.ly/free from DRB. And you'll just put in your name, your email. We do not share those. We hate slimy people who do. And we're going to have something in there from Rob. So Rob, just tell them quickly what I'll have my VA putting in the vault from you. What is it? Drum roll. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll have the Grit and Growth Guidebook in there, and that'll make it super easy for people looking to kind of change up their routines and introduce some new practices and habits, and then also really kind of level themselves up and create the momentum that they might be looking for to get unstuck and bring their projects to the next level.
I love this. So I love the title, Grit and Growth Guidebook. Is that what it is?
Yes.
That's fantastic. So they'll be able to download it. You all make sure you go in again to bit.ly/free from DRB, Dr. B, and look at all our VIP sponsors at the top because they are badasses. And also look for Rob. Let's put Rob in the VIP. Let's see if hopefully he'll go for it. We'll put Rob up there too. But even if he's not up there, you're going to look for him and find your Grit and Growth Guidebook. What an incredible gift. Well, Rob, you have been a blessing to have here today. I love the way you're sharing a message of caring for ourselves so that we can take care of business. This is so essential. And we can't wait to have you back on the Bold Badass Business Show. And for those of you who don't feel like badasses today, I know sometimes we have a bad day. You might not feel like a badass today, but let me just say that you tuned in today with Rob and with me. And that means you are a badass, because only a badass shows up for themselves and their business, and the Bold Badass Business Show. See you next week. Thanks, Rob.